everyone, and welcome to our new CoatsCast series, Where Next? The Past, Present and Future of Denim. Today you are tuned in for episode 2, Blue Jeans Go Green. But before we get started and I hand you over to our host, Mawson, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We will be sending you a recording via email after the broadcast is finished, so please don't worry if you missed something. You can always go back and revisit the session afterwards. If you have any questions for our presenters today, and we really do hope that you do, please feel free to submit them using the questions pane in your GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We're going to collect these during the presentation, and we're going to go through as many as possible in our allotted Q&A time at the end of the session. Finally, we do have a handout for you to download today. Again, this can be found in your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll also be sharing some handy links in the chat box as well, so make sure you check out everything I'm putting in there. Without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our host for today, Mawson. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that lovely introduction. My name is Mawson. I'm a denim light designer, and welcome to the second section of CoatsCast. I've got some amazing guests with us today. But basically, today we're going to be talking about the actual challenges in sustainability, especially in regards to denim production and everything else that goes around it. So it's a really interesting subject and a very important subject, and something that many more designers and product developers and companies are spending a lot more energy on now, because it's a lot more forward facing. There's a lot more of these issues that are bringing to light. It's becoming a lot more. It's a lot more current, and it's very important that we make sure that when we develop collections going forward, we try our absolute hardest that every aspect of what we're doing is done with a sustainable mindset. We've got 3 amazing guests with us today. We've got Miles Johnson, creative director and denim specialist. We've got Halil Dimar, a regional tech services manager and a Coats denim specialist, and we've got Philippa Hastings, who's the sustainability coordinator at Coats. Welcome everyone. Before we begin, obviously, it's so interesting, this sort of subject, and I know for a fact that we've only got 40 minutes or so to talk, but this could easily be a 2-hour conversation. So fingers crossed, these questions we can at least highlight a lot of the issues and hopefully educate the listeners here that are here today. Why has sustainability in denim become more of the top agenda, and what challenges what challenges do we face in the industry to become more sustainable? And I open this up to Philippa first.
Thanks, Mawson. I think so. Sustainability has risen up the agenda as a whole in the fashion industry, sort of in the wider context, largely from consumer demand, I think, and this is in particular the young generation. And it's all to do with the fact that people are educating themselves a lot more now around both the social and the environmental impacts that are associated with the clothes that they're buying. They're wanting to know more about sort of where their products are coming from, materials that are used and where they're sourced from, who's making their clothes, and the overall environmental impact. And I think that's all being influenced by having more available access to these channels of communications like social media, that create this vocal platform, especially when we're at such a crucial turning point considering the future of our planet. So I think that's why sustainability is massive on the agenda at the moment, and as a result we're seeing a rise in obviously sustainable fashion. And I think it's fair to say that denim in particular has been put into the spotlight, not only because it's probably one of the most popular materials to use in fashion. I mean, everyone owns at least one item of denim, whether that be, a pair of jeans, jacket, skirt, dress, shirt, even a bag, you name it. I think especially thanks to the current 90s trend, it's everywhere at the moment. Also, the extent of the environmental impact of denim traditionally linked to maybe some of the historic ways in which it's produced and the resources required to do so. So thinking from things like the massive amounts of water consumption, use of pesticides that go into the growing processes for the cotton, through to things like chemicals that go into dyeing and finishing, and then different finishing techniques like sandblasting, which are highly resource intensive, and also sort of have more social and health hazards associated with them as well. So you've got all of these factors that are a lot to do with it, because consumers are becoming far more aware of them, the impacts that go into producing denim, and they're starting to hold the industry accountable. And so I think there has to be that certain level of response from the industry. So I think that's one side of it. And then also in terms of challenges that we face, which was the second half of your question, you know, there's this massive challenge for the garment industry as a whole in terms of what happens to all these things at the end of life and they're not wanted anymore, and they end up in landfill rather than being recycled. And I think we need to start thinking about how we change it. And one of the challenges around denim is that more so today, I guess, where jeans and denim were traditionally sort of more largely cotton based, now we're seeing less of this mono material, and it's more in the modern world we've got these blended materials that are designed to help with things like comfort in the denim. Then that raises challenges in itself. How do we recycle these mixed materials? And that's without having the issue of how do you remove all the zips and the buttons and the rivets and the accessories that also are part of that denim garment. So I think in answer to your question, all of these factors combined have influenced why you know, that road to a more sustainable future for denim is so important. I think it's such a popular material, it's diverse, it probably always will be used and present in the fashion industry. So if we're going to carry on producing it, these issues need to be addressed so that we can produce it in a more sustainable way.
Absolutely. What an amazing answer. And you're right, there's so many companies now that exist to try and recycle these garments and try and take apart the cotton on and the actual polyester. So the future definitely is trying to think up a different way of how we've been doing it, so we have less of these other companies to help us try and recycle some of these materials that aren't that good, really. Miles, your thoughts on the first question?
Well, I mean, Philippa covered a lot of different aspects of it there. I mean, we have seen the denim industry go mass market and global in the last 50 years, but it's 150 years old. So there was 100 years of it being very natural, very organic, very just a simple approach to denim, and then suddenly its popularity over the last 50 years has meant that we've been reaching for every single chemical, pesticide, any kind of heat way that we could kind of bleach or, you know, do something to the garment to kind of make it look old, or adding kind of like about 5 different fibres into the composition of the fabrics even. And was that absolutely necessary? Well, we now know that we've caused a real mess over the years, and now we have to do something about it. So it's complicated, obviously. We're looking at the subject of sustainability is huge, and a lot of companies and people are doing what they can to try and, you know, do the best to claim back a cleaner way of working. Now everyone seems to have their own take on that, and so what's great about having discussions like the one we're having today, where are the obvious points to go to, the avenues where people can find success, and perhaps these are things that company can talk to their competition companies and just be a little bit more like, we need to get this right, to kind of lean on one another to kind of see things change. It's not something we can do individually or as small companies. So this is, we're at a juncture where we need to see some big changes for sure.
For sure, and I think, you know, actually, as you touched on it there, Miles, actually, like, collaboration really is key. And, you know, there's so many great companies that are doing great things, but some of them aren't sharing some of the knowledge that they've gained, or they are, but it's not being reached to the right people. So the more talks like this, the more we all educate ourselves about the latest, like, latest tech when it comes to garment making, finishing, you know, all the rest of it. It's actually quite important that we actually sort of share it. Halil, thank you for joining us. You know, what's your thoughts on the first question?
Thank you so much. Hello to everybody again. Actually, before we mention about the challenges of sustainable denim garments, I think we need to understand the traditional process and sustainable processes very well. And as we know, so many years denim industry has been applying so harsh washings to the garments, and these washings can be bleaching and stone wash and scrubbing and all of these washings, and we are consuming lots of water and energy and chemicals. And beside these washing process are damaging the garments, damaging the stitches, and that's why there can be lots of problems in stitch side, in fabric side. And problems means that in denim, we need to repair it, and in every repairing we are consuming laboring and energy and extra material again and again, and it is not a suitable way, it is not a suitable and sustainable way. That's why denim industry needs deeply sustainability. And so when we think about the second part, the fabric side, for example, from the 2012, stretch fabrics are getting trendy, and now we are using most these stretch fabrics. And in denim garments, you know that we are cutting the fabrics in small pieces and gathering with stitches, and stitches are very crucial in terms of durability and elongation and decorative look as well. And all of these conditions, denim industry needed to use polyester-based threads more before. The challenge is starting at this point, I think, because with the sustainability perspective, and you know that we want to recycle the garments again, but the polyester threads are a problem onto the cotton-based denim. And so designers and brands want to use cellulosic-based threads. For example, organic cotton, BCI cotton, lyocell, and mostly lyocell. We are taking these demand mostly from the denim designers as well. But at this point, we need to be careful. We need to be washing and fabric at the same time and combine all the ideas and select the correct one, because all these fibers are natural fibers, and that's why we cannot take the enough durability and elongation from lyocell like polyester. That's why sector needed to use polyester. And at this point, we need to change our mindset. Maybe we need to change the washing types from the traditional methods to sustainable washings. And there are lots of great sustainable washings, and we observed that, for example, we can use lyocell in sustainable washes. There is no problem, and in lasering, in ozone wash. And but we need to select the correct fabric type at the same time. And when we think about all of these things, nowadays people are confused a little bit, especially designer side. But always there is a solution.
I think
Because our aim is great, our aim is sustainability, and we are in a transformation. So we are developing something new. I think we can solve these problems and overcome.
you know, there's so many things that have happened even in the last 5, 6 years, where now I'm picking, I'm sure Miles is the same, I'm picking fabrics mostly from making sure that they laser and they're laser friendly. So you don't have to have many harsh treatments to get that amazing wash down. So, you know, we're very much already, many designers are thinking like this now, only because it's actually a lot more better for production. It's a lot more better for the person who's going to be washing the garment. It's a lot more better for the environments that these garments are made in. But anyway, you know, so many great things you actually said there, Hillier. But moving on now, so, you know, what changes have there been to produce garments in like manufacturing in the last like 20 years? Obviously, we've touched on laser being the one that I used more than 20 years ago, right at the beginning of my career, and now it's become pretty much at the forefront, where every major company if they're doing more than 500-600 garments per season, they're going to be lasering their garments. But I'll go straight to Miles here. So Miles, in your career so far, you've seen pretty much everything now, and now it's quite an exciting sort of point, right?
Yeah, I think as a designer or as a creative, the restrictions that we now have are sometimes they force even more creativity. And I think, it's just really sometimes understanding about what we're trying to do as far as protecting the planet and, the elements of protecting the air and protecting the water and protecting the soil are the things that we need to be thinking about. So as designers, we have choices, don't we? And those choices that we make have repercussions, and they have effects and impacts on the planet. So what we need to obviously be doing now is thinking about, do I need to take a super dark indigo fabric if I'm going to want to wash it out to a light colour? Maybe I could take something which is already a bit more of a lighter colour. How can I reduce on water consumption? Do I need the chemicals, or can I use ozone, or can I use laser to get kind of a wash effect or an aged effect? And there are so many alternative ways of getting the look that you want, but it's just all about making the right choices. And going back to a point that Philippa made earlier as well, trying to find trims which are removable so that then the garment can be recycled and it's recyclable, or it's maybe even biodegradable or compostable afterwards. These are all just things that we just need to think about, because if we think about the food industry, they're so much further ahead of us. So here we are trying to sort of like claim things back again. These are just the things to keep in mind on the approach to design.
It's interesting, having designed just a couple of collections in the last few years with a proper like sustainable hat, like literally thinking everything about the packaging it comes in, even the hang tags. I've been so like difficult about it. It has to be combustible. Can we use the scraps from our fabrics to make the paper? It's like, really thinking a lot more circular. And actually it's been quite like sort of like rewarding designing in that way, because all of a sudden you're speaking to suppliers who also are in the dark. They're going, sorry, we don't have that solution yet. And you're like, really? That's surprising. So you end up having to do it yourself in some respects, or even educating them. So it's a really interesting phase that we're in right now, where all of us are trying our hardest to do everything in the best possible way, without, as I said, without damaging the environment or our planet. Sort of like Halil, what sort of things have Coats been doing in a sustainability standpoint, and some of the solutions that you guys have overcome just in the last few years?
Actually, Mohsin, we are following very closely to the fabric side, to the washing side, to the manufacturers, and we are working with a big manufacturers all around the world, and we are learning lots of things, and accordingly, we are shaping our product range to do these new developments. For example, when we think about the washing side, especially, denim industry is making its own history in the last years. Lasering and ozone wash and e-flow, and there are lots of biodegradable enzyme usage and less chemical usage, and so accordingly we are acting. For example, lasering example, um, after the lasering is getting more trend, and we have observed that all the polyester threads burned and melt because it is synthetic fibers, and when you apply to lasering directly to the stitches, and most of market is using now polyester threads, and it was disaster. And so we made lots of trials, and we observed that all the cellulosic fibers durability against the lasering is very good. And in this concept, for example, now we are offering cotton wrapped polyester threads, and it is dual duty eco verde, or 100% BCI cotton, or 100% lyocell thread. All of these threads are working under the lasering. For example, in ozone wash side, we haven't seen any big negative impact, negative damage onto the stitch, onto the thread side. So our customers can use any sustainable thread in ozone wash. But in productivity side, in right first time side, we worked a lot because after the stretch fabrics, especially denim manufacturers had huge thread breakage problem, especially in dummy blowout process. And we shaped our some products and specialized some products to the denim industry again. And now they are using in very small operations, very, very less consumption, but they can reduce their thread breakage level from 40% to 5%. And this is a sustainable way, because there was huge waste in terms of the thread breakage and repairing rate. So I can say that our innovation hubs, our sales team are following to all industry day by day, all the innovations, all the new trends in the washing side, in the fabric side, and accordingly, we are developing our products.
Halil, I have a question for you. Is it kind of like really maybe a recommendation that you would make to a customer who's looking for the right thread for their garment, that they would maybe be looking at the contents of the thread to be very similar, if not the same, to the composition of the fabric that they're using, so that there isn't this issue at the end of the life of the garment about how to recycle it or how to take it apart if it's all made of the same fiber?
Actually, Miles, very good, great question, because we are considering lots of things in the thread recommendation. We are asking lots of questions to the denim manufacturer side. The first question is, what is your fabric type? Is it stretch or non-stretch? Because it is impacting all the decision. And the second question, what will be your washing types? Sustainable washings or traditional washings or combine? And what is your ratios, chemical ratios, or what is your lasering degree? And according to all of these datas we are offering. So, and what is your purpose in sustainability? Nowadays, lots of questions we are taking. Customer can ask, I need a sustainable thread. This is an open-end question. And I am asking to them again, what is your purpose? Are you planning to recycle all the garments, or are you planning to use a sustainable thread and you don't have any plan about the recycling of the garments? According to all of these things, we are recommending a thread, the best suitable thread.
Because there's no point in sustainable thread, is there? If the rest of the garment, the fabric, the washes are not sustainable, like, it doesn't make sense, does it?
Yes, actually, this question is related little bit. Let me make a summary. Some brands, some customers are demanding recycling all the garments, and in this concept, we are offering more natural fiber and natural threads, such as cotton threads, lyocell, not polyester-based threads. But some brands and designers want to design their garments according to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation logic. Maximum 2% non-cellulosic material usage, you know that it is allowed. And at this time, the stitches, when we think about the stitch consumption onto the total garment, it is below the 2%. But this does not mean that you can use virgin polyester or like in the past. At that time, we are offering, for example, recycled polyester covered by BCI cotton or lyocell thread, or some other cotton-based or lyocell-based solutions in a sustainable way in terms of the material usage. Or if they apply lasering, for example, we are not recommending polyester threads. We recommend the cotton-based or lyocell threads, for example.
I've got a question. It's an interesting one. When it comes to, obviously, it's great that you guys are developing lots of sustainable options regarding your thread type, and you're moving forward the lyocell thread, and you've also developed this long staple cotton thread, which is amazing as well. But have there been any customers asking you about the dye stuffs that you use to be more sustainable, or is it that you're already quite confident with the actual dyeing, the actual material and the chemicals that you're using to dye the thread, that you're already quite You know, how does that work? Surely you must get questions about that.
This question is for me, Mohsin, firstly.
It is for you. It is
Yes.
for you, William. Yeah.
You can click on that.
Yes.
Technical.
Yes, of course. We started to take these questions, especially in the last years after the sustainability trend from the brand side. And for example, we launched Trecherki Vero Plus thread. It is BCI cotton, and we are using some eco-friendly dye stuffs only. On the other hand, we are producing dual duty indigo. And in dual duty indigo, we are not dyeing the polyester part, and only we are dyeing the cotton part by using sustainable indigo dye stuffs. And so our customers are asking these questions, and we are saying that, for example, in indigo, we are dyeing only cotton part. This means that we are not dyeing the polyester, and less energy consumption, less chemical consumption. They are asking to these parts. But for all product side, it is a mandatory situation. All of our dye stuff are suitable for Oecotech standards 100s and class 1 and REACH agreement especially, and Coats restricted chemical list. We are selecting all the dye stuff according to this variety of lists.
Amazing. You answered the question absolutely perfectly. Just moving on now. We need to, obviously, we've touched on this already, but you know, even like Philip has sort of touched on it earlier. But you know, the circular economy, especially when it comes to garment production and everything that we're doing, is something that we need to be thinking a lot more on, and a lot more designers are thinking in this way now. You know, it's like what for Philippa now. What sort of things have Coats been doing, and what sort of things should we be doing regarding the circular economy?
So I think it, you know, it goes back to what you and Miles was saying earlier. You know, the sustainability journey in general, in the bigger picture, is it requires this collaboration aspect. So, you know, at Coats, we are doing our own thing. We've been working incredibly hard across our own supply chain, working towards our own sustainability targets, all of which contribute to the space. For example, quite topical, picking back up on the topic of water consumption that I mentioned earlier. You know, we're working on ways to reduce the use of water in a lot of our dyeing processes. We've done things like investing in some future technologies, looking into digital ways of dyeing yarns and threads, which is quite cool. So there's all that going on in the background. But then in terms of, you know, working towards circularity, we ourselves, you know, we're working hard. Again, we've heard already some examples from Halil to provide more sustainable sewing solutions to our customers, to our partners, to meet their needs. And we have more sort of coming in the pipeline, which we've mentioned previously in some of the work that we've put out. You know, we're working towards this more circular thinking for the industry, and how the role of threads comes into that, you know, from the point of view of enabling either compatibility within the garment, or how the garment can be disassembled with ease at the end of life for, you know, to help increase recycling. But then we also recognise that, going back to the collaboration point, that we're sort of one piece of that entire puzzle, and it requires collaboration across the entire supply chain. You know, like Miles said, if everyone works in isolation, we need people to share ideas, to come together, to collaborate. You know, we want to work with our partners on our innovations that we're bringing to market and we're piloting, to help with that, to help face that challenge, to help work towards circularity, and to help scale up faster. So one of the things that we announced earlier in the year is that we've become a member of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and obviously they're doing a lot of amazing work in this space, and we're fully supportive of it, and we're looking at how we can work with their network as a member to kind of get more widely involved in those different projects as a kind of a starting point. But I don't think it doesn't sort of stop there. There's more to be done, and I think we're obviously really keen to get involved. But I think the industry as a whole, in terms of how designers and brands should be thinking going forward, I think everyone needs to take on that kind of way of thinking, so that we can scale up and move towards that circular economy aspect faster.
You know what? I remember going to a like recycling plant in Pakistan about 2 years ago, and I was really confused at the time because what they were doing, they had all these garments, all piles of garments everywhere, but they were first of all selecting out which one's cotton, which one's poly cotton, and mix like, just sort of separating it. But when it came to cutting the garments and like, shredding them, they were only cutting like the legs out. They were leaving the waistband and all the pocketing, and they were cutting round all of the threads, even though they said it could be cotton, but we just don't know. So so they estimated about 1/3 or maybe half the jean was still wasted or in a landfill, even at a recycling center. So there are definitely challenges ahead. I'm sure Miles can agree. It's like even if we designed a sustainable garment, should there be a special tag, or should there be something woven in the garment to make people know that this can be put into a landfill, Miles, something like that?
This is one of those things where you just have to pick up the phone and talk to other companies about how they feel about these issues, because those people that work at those recycling centres, they've got all those garments flying along conveyor belts, and how do they know? How have they actually got time to look at the care labels and look for instructions? And it's going to have to be in the end about consistency and about companies aligning and finding ways to kind of like make it really obvious what the contents are. There's so much work to be done there, but I think we've all got friends that work at other companies and things, and I think let the guard down. It's not about intellectual property anymore. It's no longer just about making money. It's not just about selling for more profit. We've got a responsibility now as well at the same time. So if we're going to actually be effective and do something good for the planet, then it means that we need to be open to talking to other companies who we've seen for many years as our competition.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. And it's true, when it comes to zippers and buttons, I know there's solutions now with like screw off buttons, but in a like conveyor belt, have you got time to unscrew with a screwdriver the button? Probably not. So even though it's a step in the right direction,
no, we haven't. But if all denim manufacturers went from a traditional shank button to a screw off shank button, then any pair of jeans that they saw on the conveyor belt, they'd know that all those buttons would unscrew, and they would probably set the time aside to do that, because you don't want to put that metal through the machines because they just jam up the hoppers. But that's just one of those examples that maybe people could change over to a sustainable option.
Absolutely. If it was mandatory that going forward all buttons and trims should be removable, but then they'll have to rethink even the rivets and things as well. And there's lots of solutions with using circular bar tacks now and all the rest of it that can do away from the metal rivet, even though I'm in love with the rivet. But it's one of these things of like, it's just understanding that how things were made in the past not necessarily are the right way of doing it now. And we know now, right? Like actually, it's not good that we're throwing away all this metal back into the earth again, and all the rest of it. So it's definitely
it's not about taking anymore. It's about putting back, and it's about not wasting generally.
I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? Now, we've kind of, like Miles said earlier, we've been doing things for a set way for so many years, and now we've realised, okay, we've been doing it this way, but we've also had this negative impact, and we now need to change it. And the thinking's there, the conversations are there, the solutions are starting to appear, but now it's taking it that step further and putting the actions in place and having those wider conversations and linking up and connecting so that we can move it forward and almost make those ways of thinking and doing things, and having screw buttons in jeans as the norm, as opposed to, oh, this is a cool new thing, and it needs to be the set thing.
Yeah. What's interesting, just one last thing before we move on to the questions. We've got a couple of questions as well that come through, but I'm really interested by the dye stuff still, and I'm really interested by like bacteria based dyes and all these new even dyes made from wood that from bark, and it was amazing stuff that you can do. And these solutions are definitely something that I'm sure Coats are probably looking into like already or already have been done. So it's so interesting where we're at, and it's a very exciting phase that we're all in, because every aspect of what we're making, every aspect of every single part of the component of the gene is being scrutinized, and it's quite a cool it's a good starting point for a younger designer to come in, because they haven't got the baggage from the past of how we used to do it. So that's what's quite cool about it. Now got some questions now. This is a question, I guess, for the group, but maybe might be for Halil. How far away are we from seeing a cellulose thread meet the requirements for sort of a denim? And what are the advantages and disadvantages? I think you touched on this already,
Yes.
you touched on it, but you can maybe recap for us again.
Sure. Actually, in the first question we had mentioned about, and the big advantages of cellulosic fiber usage into the denim, of course, it is regarding to direct the sustainability, because if you want to recycle all the garment, at least when you don't use the polyester thread in the stitch line, and you will not be supposed to remove all the stitch from the garment before recycling of the garment. That's why the natural fiber usage into the stitches would be the great. And the first a big advantage is this. And the second one is it is more appropriate, it is more suitable with the fabric, because fabric is natural fibers. But during the time, denim industry put lots of different traditional washings into the industry, and that's why they needed to use more durable, more stretch sewing threads. That's why I think they needed to use polyester or nylon or some special continuous filament threads. And when we think about the denim appearance, all the natural fibers looks more matte and dull and a little bit hairy. It looks natural. And you know that polyester threads look always shiny, and we can understand easily this thread is polyester or this thread is cotton or lyocell. That's why the fundamental advantages of these. But what about the disadvantages? At the end of the day, these threads are natural fibers, and natural fibers means that lower strength and lower elongation. And all of these things can cause lots of seam cracking problems and lower quality problems into the production side and into the consumer usage. Let's say the production units are repairing it and are loading the garments, and we are purchasing these garments from the stores, but in the consumer usage, homemade washing, and when we wear it, we can have some thread breakage problem, especially in the stretch fabric side. The main disadvantage of the cellulosic fibers, I think, is the quality side. All of other things are advantages, but the only problem is for now, because we are still working on it. Yes, we launch our 100% lyocell thread. The brand is Eco Region, but at the backside, we are still searching for how can we increase its strength and elongation more and more and more, because the future is, I think, will be lyocell.
I think so as well, and I think what it is that most people are thinking that these newer sustainable threads are like a drop-in replacement, and that's not what we're saying. Because if that drop-in replacement existed, then there'll be no need for polyester threads. So it's like one of these things. You're still working on it now, and and that's the thing. If you're going to be doing a heavy bleach finish, then maybe a lyocell thread probably isn't the right idea.
Yes.
But that's the thing. You're going to be making a sustainable garment with a sustainable wash, then maybe consider using one of the more natural fibers to complement that garment. Like Miles, would you agree to that statement?
Yeah, I mean, if you're using a polyester garment, use a polyester thread. I mean, there's things that there's a place for everything, isn't there? But it's all about how easily recyclable those things are in the end. But I think lyocell, I agree with Halil. That is the future of a natural orientated fiber that has strength, and that's kind of effectively we all want that, because we don't want to see the quality of our garments start to go downhill because we have to make the right choice. And it's people get caught up, don't they, so much in, oh, it's going to cost more money and we're not sure, it's not as reliable as that old polyester thread that we've been using for years and years. It seems like a massive jump to make, but it's not necessarily the case.
You know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because everyone, you know, that's the first argument that I always have is like, oh, but if it's going to be more expensive. And I'm like, well, you know, if more and more people order it, it will become cheaper for everyone. So it's one of these mindsets to change how we're thinking. And you're absolutely right, Miles. It's like, you know, it's like there's so many ways. If we all just think slightly differently, then it would actually be quite like beneficial for everyone. It's a question to the group.
Can I also say one thing as well? I probably get struck down for it as well, but I do think it is perhaps about time that we put the prices up on certain things as well, because we seem to be obsessed about keeping the prices down, and they haven't changed that much since the 1980s. So, I mean, you know, things have changed in the world a bit, but still we're in this thing where people refuse to pay more money for things. But actually, if we want to be sustainable, then it will mean that while things are still niche, they are going to cost a little bit more money. But like you say, the bigger they get, the cheaper they get. So everyone has to get behind them.
I think blockchaining and being sustainable, there are systems in place that cost money. That, you know, you can't just be sustainable from the beginning. Sustainability comes at a cost, and that, you know, you're right there. It's like, you know, definitely prices do need to increase, and I would agree to that statement. Especially cotton and all the rest of it. Everything's far too cheap, and all these premium items are we treating in a non-premium way, really. Why do you think it's taken so long to have a sustainable mindset? Obviously, to this group, we're all quite experts in this sort of subject, but for the companies that are still lagging behind, it's an open question to the group. But why do you think it's taken so long to adopt being sustainable? Is it down to price, do you think?
I think it's money, mostly, and I think it's maybe lack of education and awareness. That's my take.
I think also as well, there's, I guess, no one wants to be the first people to do something, but I think in terms of the wider sustainability context, I think generally sustainability has taken a long time to get to the stage it's at, because I guess although yes, we're having a massive impact now, we're only just starting to see the implications of things like, you know, environmental degradation, climate change. It's only sort of coming to light, and so people are now starting to, because you can kind of physically see it and maybe relate to it a bit more, people are now starting to respond and say, okay, we need to take action. And it's taken that long to get to that stage. So now everyone's more aware of it. They can see what's happening. They can see why we need to take action. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why the ball's now starting to roll. Yeah, and I think that in itself then gets applied down at industry level. And so one of the places we're seeing it crop up more and more is within the fashion industry, because there is such a big environmental impact associated with it.
Absolutely. You know,
I feel sorry for a lot of companies as well, because there's so many different choices to make, and everyone knows that they have to do something. So sometimes people are reaching out for a sustainable option to start to bring into their business and the way they produce and manufacture garments. And sometimes they'll do one thing and they get caught on one thing, and they don't necessarily look every season for building on the sustainable approach and doing more and more each season. It's just like, okay, we've done that thing now, that's our thing, right? Now we're in. But actually, it's one of those things where you have to keep, like you said earlier, Mawson, you have to look at all the ingredients, all the aspects of denim garments, and you're looking at all of it now through a microscope on what can be done better. So and we're all, you know, we need to be talking to each other and sharing information. There's no intellectual property, there shouldn't be anyway. You know, I've always been very open about kind of like sharing all the information or that I have, like you are, Mawson, as well, I know.
Yeah, very always been like transparent. I think that's the only way to be. But I remember, you know, as a good friend of ours, is a brand called Story MFG, and one of the seasons they decided to do really like they tried to do like sustainable packaging. It's a big deal. This is amazing. This is a few years ago now, and I think what they had problems, and when the customers got the garments, all the labels had come off, and you know, so some of these newer techniques, you know, everyone's trying their hardest to be sustainable, but you know, there are some obstacles in the way to do that, especially in a higher production level. But being transparent. Yeah, please.
I think as well, kind of the diversity of it now has helped a lot, because I guess sort of sustainability has all been there in the background for a long time. You know, there are companies that have been producing sustainable goods or whatever, but there's always been this perception in the background that, you know, either recycled products aren't as good quality, or sustainable products are dull because they're traditionally sort of, you know, beige and more neutral colours, or they're just not cool or trendy. But now I think the way things are going and the way the industry and the world sort of moving with sustainability, all those things are changing. You know, we've got technologies, we've got more options, we've got more knowledge, and so sustainability is almost becoming cool or trendy. There's more demand for it, and so it's helping that drive, and it's helping us to get there faster, because companies are responding to it now because they've got the demand, whereas before they might be putting out sustainable products but no one wants them because they're not cool, or they're not attractive, or whatever, to, you know, personal perception.
I think just something that
One
Miles
of the things,
mentioned.
one of the things that I think for quite a long. Oh no, sorry. I was going to say just one of the things that was happening for quite a long time is that people were trying, when they were working on sustainable approaches to design, they were putting sustainability out to be the most important thing about the garment, and it was almost too early. And I heard a lot of companies saying, "Oh, our consumer doesn't really care about it," whereas actually the most important thing about designing garments is still the aesthetic, the look, the fit, the feel of the garment is still the most important thing to the consumer. It should be followed up with, and here's all the sustainable things that we did for this garment. It's not like going out at the front you start banging the drum about the sustainable work that you've done, but it's more that's the work that's gone into it, and that's the stuff that's behind it that supports it. So no, sorry, Martin.
You know what? No, don't worry. I was about to say, you know, it's small steps, right? Like, you know, there's 17 UN SDGs, you know, so if a company every season tries to tackle one or two of them, or tries to, you know, it's small steps, you know, each company, yeah, they are. You're right, Miles. It's quite frightening for a new company starting, going, oh my God, I have to do everything properly now. I can't make mistakes like the other companies have. It's small steps. It's like looking at everything and trying your hardest to do it, and bringing people aware to what you're doing, even if it's just water management, or your CSR programs are amazing, or, you know, you're using organic cotton this season, whatever. Just making people aware that you're trying your hardest, and, you know, you're covering these bases at the moment. That's what
we talked about it before as well. I don't think it's bad these days that people talk about what they find difficult to do.
Yeah,
like we all have, like, there's complications, and I think you can be really humble and quite honest in your communication. Yes, you talk about the things that you're doing, but you're talking about the things that you haven't yet achieved but you're still working on. I think that's a bit fair to say. I think the consumers might find that really interesting. What's your plan?
Yeah,
I think they appreciate
so
it as well. You're quite honest and open about it. You know, you can't, as an individual, as a company, you can't possibly achieve everything, but it's one thing saying you're doing X, Y, and Z, aren't we fantastic? But I think it's also another thing being able to say, but we're either struggling, or, you know, this, we're finding this challenging, or we're not quite there yet with something. And I think that's a massive part of the whole journey, about companies being sort of, you know, celebrate the achievements they're making, but also being open and honest about those steps that they need to overcome as part of the journey.
Wow, you know, we're already, you know, we've gone over by 5 minutes. We've still got a few more questions. Let's just quickly wrap up. How can we speed up the adoption to manufacturing industry? I think we've said it. It's through education. It's being more open. It's you know, all these things like that, and spreading knowledge really, and not hiding anything. And, you know, maybe more forums, and more events, more live events, more you know, it'd be great to meet people soon. But I think sharing knowledge really is actually the key here. And if there is a denim supplier or trim manufacturer that has come up with like something, maybe they should just give it away, you know, give it away so other people can like use it. That would be awesome. I answered that question, sorry. What are your, on the final thing, what are your thoughts around sustainability, material washing in regards to maintaining quality? I think this is a Miles or Halil question.
Well, I mean, all I would say on that is that really, just to make it really clear, the most sustainable way to finish a garment is to not finish it. And so anything that you do to the garment after it's been made is weakening the fabric in some way. So, you know, go for it if you have to. And I know, of course, companies really need to, because they think that the consumers want to wear jeans that look like they're already 10 years old. Fine, but whatever you do, it's going to affect the fabric or the garment in some way. So you have to choose carefully what you're going to do. And of course, there's some fantastic, like Morten said before, some fabrics that have already been designed that are very laser friendly, so that when the laser's used lightly on those fabrics, you're already getting that beautiful white core of the fabric coming out. So you're not weakening it so much. So those sorts of choices, I think, are very good. And so many amazing washes using hardly any water, which is really exciting.
No, it is exciting. I think Amar and so any more questions? I think we're over our time limit now, but any other questions that have come through?
We are over our time and we're out of questions as well. You've covered them all. Thank you so much, Morten.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you so much for thank you so much sort of Miles, Halil, and like Philip for like joining, Amar and Sarah in like the background for being great for organizing this event. Check us out next week, same time. We're going to be talking about the future of like denim with like with a zero waste denim specialist. So it's going to be quite exciting. Thank you for joining us again. This is like goodbye from me, and thank you. Bye guys.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.